Welcome to Modular Games. My name is Kyle. Today I am very excited to present to you this book. This is the book that I have on Kickstarter right now. And this is actually not a self-contained game. This is a handbook on how to create a role-playing game. The one mechanic that I want to share with you today is the sanity system. It is called the compulsion system. It's based on a specific ability score called composure. There is also a supplemental card deck that I highly recommend you use to make it a lot easier to run the compulsion system. Essentially, the way this system works is that as you go through your adventure, you are going to encounter bad stuff. Let's say that you get into a fight. Let's say that you get shot. Let's say that you get stabbed. You're going to take a violence-based compulsion. Let's say that you encounter something that is morally repugnant, something like a dead body, something like torture. You are going to take a moral compulsion. There are a couple of other circumstances that can produce compulsions, and some compulsions are much, much worse than others. We'll get to that in a little bit. However, just because you are taking compulsions, just because you are compelled to take a certain type of action, does not mean you have to do those things right away. Instead, you are able to ignore a number of compulsions equal to your composure score. This is usually going to be a number between 2 and 5, though it's going to go as high as 10 if you invest in it. So, as soon as you reach your maximum number of compulsions, you are immediately required to drop everything, forget about any other motivations you might have had before that, and you need to fulfill the requirements of each of your compulsions. If you have purchased or if you have on hand the compulsions card deck, there will be a clear condition listed on each of those cards. If not, then you can just go based off of the name. Fear. Well, what is something that you would do if you're afraid? Once you do one of those things, you get rid of the compulsion and move on to the next one. Now, let's say you don't want to lose control of your character. Let's say that you don't want to have a violent outburst in the middle of a peaceful negotiation with non-player characters. Maybe it would be pertinent to get rid of some of those compulsions before you reach your maximum, before you go over the deep end. Well, there are 3 methods of getting rid of compulsions before you reach your maximum. The first method is simply to fulfill those compulsions early on. Let's say that you have a compulsion, once again, called fear. Well, you don't have to wait around. You can run away from whatever frightened you right then and there, in which case the fear compulsion will go away. And in the same way, any other compulsion that you encounter is going to have the same type of easy-to-clear conditions. The second means of getting rid of compulsions is to take a break. Take a short rest, take a breather, talk it out with a friend. It takes about an hour. You can adjust that time period if you want, but you take a short rest and you roll some dice. Add a bonus based on your composure, take a penalty based on the number of compulsions you currently have, and if you succeed, you get to get rid of a grand total of 1. 1 compulsion goes away from your short rest. Generally, it's a lot faster to simply fulfill compulsions, but some of them are going to be so terribly onerous that you don't actually want to fulfill them ever. Some of these are things like martyr. You literally have to die in order to clear the martyr compulsion. Okay, so what is the third way that you can get rid of compulsions? The third way that you can get rid of compulsions is if you have a specific class feature, or one of your party members or a non-player character has a specific class feature that gets rid of compulsions. For example, let's say a priest is someone who, we'll compare it to the real world. Catholic priests take confession. They'll listen to you, tell them about everything going wrong in your life, and at the end of that session, they get rid of one of your compulsions, and they replace it with a... And if you are able to fulfill that compulsion more easily than the one you had before, this is very beneficial. Now, this is the basic level of how compulsions work, but there's one more level to it. Let's say you reach your maximum compulsions over and over and over again. 3 times in one day, you reach your maximum compulsions. Or let's say that you reach your maximum compulsions and no matter what you do, you can't seem to... What happens? Well, that's when real insanity kicks in. Then you draw a psychosis brand compulsion. This is how you get something like martyr, where you literally have to die in order to clear the compulsion. Or, even worse than martyr, you might get something like bloodthirst, going full vampire on someone, essentially. Now, while you can clear these compulsions, it's generally better to use one of the other two methods to do so. And of course, the more compulsions you have, the easier it is to reach your maximum. So if there's any compulsion you have that you're trying to ignore and trying to ignore and trying to ignore, everything else that might set you off becomes that much more dangerous. This is, of course, a grand replacement for the most common sanity system, which is where you have a certain sanity score, where you slowly lose your sanity until it's too low and you're not allowed to play that character anymore because they're a psychopath, and it's just not allowed. I personally think that it would be much more interesting to go ahead and get a visual display, get a feeling for what this craziness actually looks like, and that way maybe it's an even bigger deal to try to maintain your sanity because you know exactly what can go wrong when you run out of it. All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed today's show. Like, subscribe, give a comment, tell me whether this is a wonderful idea or a terrible idea, and I'll see you next time.